Welcome to Republic World, Lushin.
Thank you. Thank you, Ankita.
We would like to start this conversation with you taking us through your journey into theatre and films.
Okay, so I started theatre inadvertently, I think from grade 4, when I must have been like 9 years old. I was cast in an international, there was a group that had come from overseas, and it was an international festival of school plays. So there were plays from outside, there were plays, I was in Pune at that time, in St. Mary's School in Pune. And my teacher just gave me this role, and I was put in this role where I was actually playing a divorcee, if you please. I don't think I even knew who a divorcee was. I had these white gloves and these red heeled shoes, and I had a cap, I remember, and a bag, and I was given several lines, and I went on to stage and just did what I had to do. And that was it. The teacher asked me, and I just did it. And the next thing I know is that I won an award for this. Oh. So that kind of made me think that, okay, so what is all this about? What's theatre all about? And whenever there was something in school, I would take part. But I wouldn't say I had even toe-dipped in this. It was just something that was there, happening in school, so one participated. There was no pressure. Where I think I really went into theatre in a more serious way was when I joined TAG, Theatre Action Group, which was run by Barry John. I was the youngest in the group, and we all know that 2 days back he's got the Padma Shri, Barry, who came as this 24-year-old, very handsome director from England. And I saw him first in school. He was doing some theatre work in school. I was in Convent of Jesus and Mary. I was about in 10th grade. And then I realized that there was this theatre action group that he was running, and people who were much older than me. I mean, there were people who I was like, what? I must have been 14 or 15. There were people who were 18, 19, 20-year-olds. I was the youngest. And my sister Lilette was also, in TAG. And I remember she took me by the hand and led me into this inferno. For a newcomer, it was like an inferno because you felt, oh my God, I've got to audition, and how is it going to be? How will I fare? There are all these older people, etc. So I remember I had 2 plats, and I went in for this audition, and Barry was sitting there, and lo and behold, after a little while, I was called by him separately, and I remember his words. He said, "Sweetheart, you are on." And I was thrilled because I was the kid in the group. And then thereafter, there was no looking back. I participated in many a play where I had only one word because I was the junior most. So I would have, we did a lot of Shakespeare, did a lot of known playwrights' works. But I remember, particularly in the Shakespeare plays, I would often have only one line or just a couple of lines, and I would wait in the wings or wait on the stage and spout these lines, but I would know everybody else's lines. And it was a real learning journey. Even though I was not participating in the beginning in lead roles, it was a learning journey because Barry would put us through a lot of workshops. In the month of June, July, when it was really hot, I remember we used to go to Sri Ram on the top terrace where there was no fan. We were in, the ultimate heat, and we would be doing workshops. I think he just sort of grilled us in that direction. So a lot of workshops happened, a lot of learning by way of sort of being in the ringside and in the wings happened. And then finally, I think when I hit the age of 16, he gave me about 2-3 lead roles. One of them was in Equus, which a lot of people remember till today. So it just goes to show you that there can be 2-3 pieces in your life that you may have done in the artistic world, in the artistic field, which actually can stay with people. So this was really a wonderful beginning experience for me. And those 2-3 leads that I did in the end, one in Equus as Jill, one in Marat Saad, And then I think there was one more play I'm not recalling. But these plays, I think, gave me some standing in my own eyes that yes, you know, I can do this kind of thing. I love theatre. I'd love to pursue it. But then you know what happens. You go into high school, the pressure becomes too much. You go into college, pressure is even more. So I did come back to theatre when I was doing my bachelor's in history from Lady Shri Ram College. Did several plays again with Barry. And then when I was doing my master's too, I think I did one. And then I started working. I got married. I went to the US. I did an MSc in education. I started teaching challenged kids. And I used theatre as a medium with severely differently abled kids in a special ed classroom, which had 8 kids who were on medication. And I was hired as a teacher for this one kid who was very, very, you know, I mean, he was 16, but had the intellectual, or shall I say, psychological and other capabilities of a 4-year-old. And he was also very aggressive and violent. So for 2 months, I really struggled with this. And then, guess what? I just decided that I'm going to try theatre as a medium with him. So we used to clown around and play games and stuff like that. And ultimately, after a year, close to a year, he got so fond of me, so close to me, that he wanted to come back to India with me. And I said, oh my God, God forbid, if I have to bring this child back with me to India. Again, therefore, the seed of theatre was sown yet again. After that, my husband got this wonderful deal. He's a professor in mathematics at Stony Brook, a leading chair, tenured professor, and at Yale. And he got this wonderful offer where he could be half the year in India and half the year in the US, or he could be in the US for the whole time. So when he got this deal, I came back here. I was working in the American school. There was no theatre at that time. This was only used as a medium in the school that I worked in the US. And when I came back, I looked around and I said to myself, there is nobody really doing children's theatre in a solid way, in a consistent way. It's a vacuum, this space. So I decided to start children's theatre like a company, like a professional company. Many of the teachings of theatre that I had learned when I was 13, 14 stayed with me. And also, I think I had worked with that kid. A lot was within me, in me. I was very confident that I could get big backers for the theatre for children. So I formed this company called Kids World. I had asked my sister in the beginning, my elder sister Lilette, whether she would like to join hands, and she said no, she would like to do only adult theatre. I said great. I asked my cousin Bubbles Sabharwal, who I've worked with for the past 32 years. And I said, look, we're going to get backers. She agreed. She said, let's just do it. So really, like Nike, we just went ahead and said, let's just do it. And what happens? Nobody wants to give us money for children's theatre. So I said, okay, no problem. Both of us said we'll do it in a garden setting. I don't have a hall, I have a garden. And I'll call the TV media to cover this production. And I think that is what actually gave birth to Kids World, because the show was so good. And I called a couple of critics. It was covered by Doordarshan then, I think. And lo and behold, what happens is I get my first backer. Somebody came in with 25,000. And then after that, there was somebody who came in with about 85 to a lakh of rupees to back children's theatre. And then there was no looking back. We had very, very top-notch sponsors who came in. There was Airtel, there was Punj Lloyd, there was Milk Food at that time, there was Oneida TV at that time. They all backed us. Many children's chips companies, Cadbury, Britannia, and it was just flowing in. And so Kids World really established itself. This happened about 32 years back. And then about 26 years back, 25, 26 years back, I forayed into adult theatre. I joined hands with Royston Abel from NSD, National School of Drama, and I formed a company called United Players Guild. We did several Shakespearean plays. We even got the Edinburgh Fringe first for the last one that we did, which was Othello in black and white, which gained lots of laurels all over. We performed in Egypt, we performed in England, we performed in Scotland, we performed at the British Council here. I worked with a lot of NSD actors, which was also another learning. People like Adil Hussain, people like Arjun Raina, people like, I've forgotten the names, but there were so many. That was a big learning for me. From there, the jump was into doing solo performances. And I realized that around me, there were so many subjects, there was so much content that I could actually use and express on the stage being a very powerful medium if you want to really connect with a live audience. Film is different, but stage is different, film is different. And on stage, you actually can, feel the pulse of the audience eye to eye, you connect with them. So I started doing a lot of solos, and I have worked a lot with Arvind Gaur, who is a phenomenal director in the sense, not only is he imaginative, very bright, very humble person, and just allows me to fly, open my wings and fly. He senses I'm right there in that role, whether I do 10 characters on stage or 12 or more. Of course, he has the authority and the prerogative to guide me, but when he knows I am in the moment and I'm in the role and I'm flying with it, he never stops me. And that is the true growth of an actor. That the director senses this. So with him, I've done all these solos. I've also done a lot of direction myself, scripted myself, a lot of productions based on, books, on concepts, on ideas, on humanism, communalism, on, on AIDS, on Hindu-Muslim mutual respect and understanding. My last one was a spiritual piece, which we just finished doing, The Life of Gautam Buddha, which has seen many, many shows. It has been performed on 2 tours to the US and, in Bodh Gaya for the Kala Chakra. It started with that, Blessed by His Holiness, for almost 30 shows. I did this with my cousin Bubbles, this particular one. And it has been performed at Sanchi for about 5,000 Buddhists, Dalit Buddhists, in Bodh Gaya for Buddhists from all over the world. It has been performed for the President of India with none other than Ranveer Singh, playing Buddha just before he did Band Baja Barat and got famous. It has performed at Mao for the Jawans who face bullets. Where hasn't it been in terms of very meaningful and poignant connections with the audience? So the journey is not stopped. I'm working on a new piece now with Arvindji. Yeah, another solo. Yes. And traveling overseas with Buddha and with Aruna's story, to the US.
Coming to Aruna's story, you played 18 characters in a solo act play. And that too in a time span of 1 hour and 15 minutes.
Yes.
18 characters in one play.
Yes.
How did you make it possible? Or what kind of preparation did you take for it? Because we have often heard of actors sharing their journey of the challenges that they face in playing a single role. And here you have played 18 characters.
I think in all my solos, starting with, I'm just going to mention this as a precursor to discussion on Aruna's story. In all my solos, I have played either 12 or 13 or 14 or 16 or in Aruna's story, 18. I think it starts, the inception is that I identify a hell of a lot with the subject, with the subject matter. I play these roles singularly because I believe I want to do it on this piece. So, excuse me, I don't get other actors involved. Frankly, it's also much easier when you travel because there's just you and there's another person. So you can imagine for international travel, from city to city nationally, it becomes so much easier when there are just 2 people or max 3 people. And I have one little bag with my costumes. I make my costumes very simple. My sets extremely simple. The whole, जैसे कहते हैं हिंदी में, actor के बल पे है. The whole production rests on my shoulders. Okay, the producing of it, of course, the direction is completely Arvindji's baby, and he does a marvelous job. And the producing, the acting, the getting in of the commerce, because I don't feel shy about saying this, that there should be backers for solid artists. Why not? Cricket can be backed, so many other things, fashion shows can be backed. Why not? So I've really stuck, as Shakespeare's words, I've stuck to the, what does he say in one of the plays, that you ground yourself to the sticking place, yeah? And you just don't give up. You just are fiery about the fact that you'll do it alone, and you have conviction and belief that people will come forward and back you. So it has been with all my shows, starting with Untitled, my first solo, where I work with puppets, and with ventriloquism. My voice changes like how, from an old lady to a young person, to the sais, a lover, to the mad king who's from Rajasthan. And people always ask me, how does this happen? And do you know the answer is always, you want to say something?
But when you're playing multiple roles, how do you make the mental transition from one character to the other?
Yeah, it is something, firstly, I identify with the subject matter. And secondly, I think if I really go granularly asking myself this question, the answer probably also rests with the fact that I have done a whole lot of workshops with kids and also training them in voice, okay? Training them in voice. Also my earlier grounding with workshops possibly helped, but ultimately I think it's the soul of the actor. It's absolutely the soul of the actor. It's an undekha haath from somewhere that guides me, that blesses me. I'm not trying to sound pious, but it's a mystical journey. I don't know what happens to me when I'm out there and I get into the character of an Aruna, who I draw an analogy with a working girl today, full of spirit, full of, laughter and dreams and humor and loving Hindi music and singing, that kind of character. And then I suddenly jump into a Dr. Sardesai, who is this doctor from Konkan, and the accent completely, changes, and the intonation, and I don't know what happens to me. I become that character because I identify so wholly with the love that these two felt for each other, with him, from jumping from there into the mother, who's another kind of character, who's got this slightly high-pitched kind of voice. How does this happen to me? It's happening now. But it happens wholly and fully because I just feel them. I just feel them from the soul here, within. That is why every show is different. And I can be very upset with myself when I feel, oh God, I didn't go into this character 90% today. I went into it 80%. Only an actor knows that, nobody else. But I'm very hard on myself. The internal barometer of a good actor, of being a critique and being ruthless, is something which rests in me full on. So I used to often come off stage and say to my husband, oh God, I didn't do as good. And he would say, stop. look at the audience, see what they feel. Because honestly, Ankita, it's 49% what an actor does. It's 51% what an actor communicates out there, what an actor injects there. And one of the marvels of being an actor on stage is that you can feel that pulse, like I said. Am I giving enough to that person watching me in the first, because I can't see beyond with the lights blinding me more than the first 2 rows. But am I being able to? Yes, I am. I feel I can connect there. So when that happens, it's magical, because that carries you. That carries you. So the first 10 minutes for me are extremely important. I've done 6 solos so far. And one is actually with another guy, this piece that I did with on HIV, which I directed myself, which has also traveled a lot overseas, where there are 2 solos and they get combined into one piece, and then again they go back to 2 solos and stuff like that. And in this piece, I remember, you know, I could almost feel the energy coming at me and my energy going there. So it's 49% here and 51% what happens over there. So in answer to your question, it's something really mystical.
We would like you to take us through the story of Aruna Shanbaug, and why do you think it has become all the more relevant now to talk about it?
Yeah. Well, I started this piece before COVID, right? And we all read in the papers that rape is something that is a consistent. Gang rape comes like big news, obviously, because it's even more horrific. But abuse, rape, happens all the time, not just here in our country, our beloved India. It happens all over the world, internationally. I have taken Bitter Chocolate on, again, Pinky Virani's bestseller, where we created a piece, a solo piece. I've taken it to England, I've taken it to the US. Once again, child sexual abuse happens everywhere. Rape happens everywhere. Gang rape, with Nirbhaya, I thought a lot of people must have got a huge slap on their faces like perpetrators, even to some extent, you know, woken all of us up in the sense of participating, participating to say, what should we be doing? How can this be, you know, curtailed? How, so law, doctors, whoever was a part of this nexus, involved in this nexus in a good way also, or in a not so good way, everybody was involved in this. Aruna's story, I think, is a very good example where you draw an analogy between a working woman of today and how she was attacked by this janitor, by this worker, with a chain, and you know, she was raped with this chain. That to me is horrific, because it almost is like, you know, there were 10 monsters doing this to her.
And it happened at a hospital in Mumbai where she was working as a nurse.
She was put in, if you permit me, I'll talk a little bit on this case. So here was this nurse, 1973, from a small place called Haldipur, near the outskirts of Konkan. She came from a very poor family. She was a very pretty girl, very poor family. People in her family wanted her to quickly get married, especially her mother and her brother. And how she was ambitious for herself, had a dream, and wanted to become a nurse, and came to Bombay at KEM, King Edward Memorial Hospital, and had dreams of saving all her money and going abroad and doing a higher degree and coming back in a higher posting at KEM, and how she was saving every buck, every rupee for this. She loved Hindi music, Hindi songs, Hindi filmy songs, loved singing it, you know. And so for me, when I read the book, it was a complete analogy with today's girl, you know, who is soaking off life, who wants to soak off life. And what happens to her? Because she dreams big, she comes to this hospital, KEM, she is put in charge of the veterinary section of the hospital, and there she is, you know, going with full confidence. And one such day when she goes there, she notices that the person who's in charge of all these animals, these pets, is stealing the dog food. And she ticks him off and tells him that this should not happen. She's firm, she's tough, yes, she says this, and that guy takes offense because she speaks in this sharp way. And what does he do? One day when she goes to change her clothes, you know, nurses change in to get into their uniforms and so on, he takes this chain and he rips her. He assaults her, then he rapes her, and because he did it with this chain, he stops the flow of oxygen to her brain cells, and it damages her brain cells. Possibly he even stops the flow of blood to her brain cells, and she's left in PVS, permanent vegetative state. Pinky Virani has written this amazing book, Aruna's story, on her life, and she is put back into the hospital. The nurses feel a lot of empathy and compassion for her and start looking after her, and herein is the double-edged sword, because they're taking care of her, so she's living, and had they not taken care of her, possibly she would have died. But they love her and they take care of her, and she continues being in PVS for 42 years. She dies at the age of 66, which is not, 73 to 2015 is quite recent. And she dies because of natural causes, because she got pneumonia. But can you imagine being in that state for 42 years? And what do I hear from a neurologist in Kolkata, where I recently performed it? That those people in PVS, who are in PVS, are trapped in a body where they can possibly not see or hear, or the different manifestations, but they can also be trapped in a body where they can be hearing you and knowing what is going around them, but they can't speak. So can you imagine being in this half-life for 42 years? And boy, did I feel I wanted to do a solo on this and share it with the world. So I started. Unfortunately, COVID hit and I couldn't do it for 4 years. But I, again, pulled up my socks and gone back into it. And once the gang rape happened in Kolkata, I said, oh my God, this piece needs to be done again. Because what does it talk about? It talks about what happened to her, but you see not a squirmy, decapacitated figure of a patient. You see the working woman, and you see it peppered with what happened in her life, from the narrator, who's like a journalist, to whatever happened in her life. Dr. Sardesai is another big lead in this, lead role in this. Her mother, her brother, the policeman, the BMC guys, Bombay Municipal Corporation guys, the doctor who's absolutely callous about the fact that, we're taking such good care of her, so what's the problem? Why does anybody want to take her anywhere else? The hospital is taking great care of her. And then, so peppered with all these people who come, the matron, the nurses, and so on. And then towards the end of the play, we see what Pinky really fought for, the laws that she fought for, and the 2 laws that came about. The landmark passive euthanasia law that came about in 2011, especially for PVS patients, where you can, you can taper off the feeding that you give them, and provided that you follow the rules and regulations which are laid out internationally, but you can start tapering it off to let the person go gradually, smoothly. And the next law was the landmark euthanasia law for those who are brain dead, where the ventilator can be switched off. Of course, with the acquiescing, the yes coming from the family. But these are huge laws, and she fought tooth and nail for these laws. We hear everything about Bollywood from, you name it, but what is required in this country, in this Delhi of ours, is also the fact that we have to talk about these things. We have to talk about it where it is visible.
So you said that you were prompted to stage this play in Kolkata after the Arjikar incident.
Bombay wanted it. Delhi wanted it. I have to return to the US. Therefore, I am pulling the brakes right now. But when I come back, I'm going to make sure I do it in many more cities. And I'm very happy to tell you that as we speak, I'm letting you know that I am doing it in Washington, D.C. On the 3rd and 4th for the Writers Club in Washington, D.C. with a good friend and sponsor of mine who does phenomenal work called Manjula Kumar of the Global Performing Arts. I mean, Aruna's story is not going to stop. It's going to keep going and sharing the story of Aruna, who, you know, in the end of the solo piece you will recollect because you saw it. I show her almost like she's in the heavens. She's talking from where she is. And she says, at least my piece, at least this book that was written by the writer, Pinky Virani, will live on after I'm gone. At least the book will say something. So even though I may be a drop in the ocean, I hope, you know, that drop can become a bucket load in that ocean and I can contribute because I think 15 years back, I stopped in theatre after Shakespeare, after a lot of, it's not to say that I don't do other fun things. I've done Salam India, which is based on Pavan Verma's book, Being Indian, which has also done shows in England, in the US, many shows in India, you know, which is a spoof, which is a takeoff on who we are as Indians, you know. So I had it written by Nicholas Khargonkar and I directed it. And I also played one of the leads in this, along with 3 other fantastic actors. And so it's not that I don't do light stuff or spiritual stuff like the life of Gautam Buddha, but this is this work that I do as a solo performer is something I'm not going to give up till I have 3 legs, I think, because I think I arrived 15 years back when I looked around and I said, there's too much around me which merits being shared, you know, on stage with a live audience. Films is something different.
So what was the kind of response that you received for this play in Kolkata, given that people are angry over the Arjikar incident and hitting the streets, protesting to demand justice for the victim? What was the response there?
When your audience is, firstly, I had a lot of doctors and I could see a lot of people in the front row, you know, bespectacled. I was told there were some doctors and so on and so forth. So it was goosebumpy for me to perform this piece there. But when your audience is silent, absolutely silent, and when your audience doesn't even cough, when your audience is following, you can see the eyes moving with you because you're only one person there. When your audience, in spite of possibly being a very, you know, solid, in the moment piece, cannot stop themselves from clapping, you know you've connected. You know you have given something to them. You have delivered. You have delivered. And when you know that the audience can't wait to vote with their feet, you can sense it. You know you have delivered. And then after the show gets over, they rush to you and they say, where are you performing next? When can we have you here again? When you have a panel discussion and you have a lot of participation from the audience. God, that is so uplifting. That is so, I can't express it. It's just, it's goosebumpy. My hair is on end when I end these performances.
So do you have plans to take it abroad, given that this issue of women's safety, it's a universal matter, right? So do you have plans
like
to?
I said, I'm going to Washington. I'm hoping to do it in New York. Fingers crossed, because it takes a while to work out these shows. I hope that I can do it in Chicago, again with a good friend and sponsor. I mean, there's some people from London who are in talks with me, because rape is there the world over. These are horrific things that have happened the world over. That is not to say that, abuse doesn't happen with men. I'm not just making it gender biased, but it does happen with men, but it happens more so with women.
So my next question here, you are a terrific actor, world-class actor, and people know about it. But we don't see you often in mainstream Hindi films. Why so? Do you think you don't get the kind of meaty roles that you want to do in Hindi films?
Yes. In my film career, which only happened recently, 15 to 18 years back, my first few films were in Canada, the first two. Actually, I did one in Chandigarh, Perfect Husband, which never saw the light of day. Then I did one more, which did not see the light of day. Then I did two serials. One was with Bobby Bedi, Rajdhani, with Dilip Tahil, and I think, who was the one who wrote it? A very lovely script. Rajdhani, Bobby Bedi was the producer. It was aired, it was very nice on Star Plus. Gave me a lot of experience with the medium. And then I did Kashmir with Farooq Sheikh, who played my husband. I played a Kashmiri Pandit. There was Smita Jekar, there was Nilima Azim, there was this nephew of Nasir, there was also, I'm forgetting his name, one of the very good known Bollywood, older actors from Bollywood, and it did very well. It did very well, but after a year it was clamped by the government because it was getting very political. After that, I did Canadian films too. One was Murder Unveiled, which was a CBC series, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and then I did Partition, again with the same director.
For Murder Unveiled, you have also won an award, right? I
won the Gemini Award, which is analogous to the Emmy in the US for this role. Yes, I was very fortunate. It's a movie on, it's a series on honor killing, and I played the infamous mother. In Partition, again, I played the mother to, they were all foreigners in this, a mother to a girl who's the protagonist. After that, I did several other Hindi films, Delhi Belly, I did Rangreez, Hawai Zada. These are all films that are Bollywood films, but like Satu Chakke, like I can't even remember, Mantra, which I did with Rajat Kapoor and with Kalki. Then of course several other films of
Made in Heaven was also there.
Made in Heaven is a series which I did, yes, which I acted in. But so one of the reasons I think is also because I'm not in India all the time. In the last 6-7 years now, I've started spending a lot of time in the US. So in fact, Made in Heaven happened with somebody calling me from Bombay while I was in the US. I was told to just come to Bombay and shoot. It happened with 1 or 2 other films also. I spent at least 6-7 months in Bombay. And I'm also not based in Bombay, 6-7 months in the US. And I'm also not based in Bombay. Some people tell me that, for films, if you're really, really, and I'm not that hungry for it, I'm not that young, I'm not a 20, 30-year-old that's, you know, really hungry for it. What came my way just came my way. I don't have an agent. I don't live in Bombay. And some people told me in Bombay that, you know, you should be here. You should be under the eye view of a lot of people. That makes a lot of difference. People see you all the time, you know, at do's here, there, wherever. And you're not there. And why don't you hire an agent? Frankly, I've not done that, at least not as yet. And sometimes they have asked me while I'm in the US, and they've said, you know, you have to come at this time, which is not a timing that has suited me. I can't just rush and come. For example, in Made in Heaven, the second sequel, there were 3 or 4 scenes I had, but I could only do 2. One was a wedding thing and one was a scene with Kalki, and I couldn't do the other 2 because they called me in the thick of the Delta wave, and I was in the US. And my family just said, there's no way you're going. You know, there's no way you're going to take a trip to Bombay with this raging Delta wave. So there have been unforeseen, you know, sort of reasons which, circumstances that have not been conducive to my being under the view of, you know, directors who might have otherwise cast me.
Is any director that you want to work with?
I had hoped to work with Sanjay Leela Bhansali because he had called me for a, he didn't even audition me. I was very touched. He didn't audition me. He just saw my pictures, and I got a call, and he wanted to cast me in this, what was this film with Ranveer? What was that film? Where he plays Alauddin Khilji. Big blockbuster.
Okay, Padmavat.
That's right, Padmavati. So they called me, Shruti called me, but I think it went flying out of the window because he cut the mother's role. I mean, there was no, that's what I was told, that is not happening. I was also in the US at that time, but it was cut. Then there was another, I got a call that he was thinking of my sister and me in one of the films, and both, she called me up and said, Lilette called me and said, hey, that's great, both of us are going to be, you know, together and things. I said, oh wow, but I think again that he decided to take younger actors. So that didn't happen. But yeah, it would be nice to work with him because I remember I loved this film, the one that had Aishwarya, Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam. I really liked that film. I found it very touching and cute. And I don't see a lot of Hindi films, but this one I kind of liked, and he had met me, and he had twice, without even auditioning me, through the casting director, of course, approached, and hopefully maybe one day I will. I don't know. Besides him, I would have loved to have worked with Benegal because he came for one of my shows. Shyam Benegal ji did come for one of my shows, which was Salam India, and I could hear this very mirthful, almost boyish laughter because it's a spoof and it's very funny. So I could keep hearing him laughing with a lady sitting next to him, his wife Neera, of course. And I didn't know who was sitting there. The lights were blinding me. But after the show got over, he walked up to me and told me that, you know, Lushin, your team, and you were excellent. And so I said, thank you. I was so humbled, you know, that this wonderful director is saying this. And then after that, I got a call. And he came on the line. And he told me, I think after a month or 2 of this, I don't remember, but he called me and he said, you know, I'm sending you this copious notes. You have to learn it up. It's very cliched, you know, Shuddh Hindi. And because I've done many of my solos in Hindi and English, bilingual, he said, you know, you have to learn it up because this is something I'm doing for the government. So it has to be like, you know, somebody who's speaking about the Constitution. I know he made a film on that later, but this was not that. This was something else. He had to do, I think, at an office or I don't know where. So I got into it and I was mugging this very difficult Hindi, and then that fell through by the government. So he called and said that, so sorry, but this has not worked and it has fallen through. So yeah, maybe I would have liked to have, because I loved his Ankur and Nishant. I thought those two, those were really soul-stirring movies for me. They really stayed with me, because he was obviously a complete, revolutionary in the direction he took. So it's always, and he was very humble, very down to earth. The way he had walked up to me and told me that, I still remember his words, and then he sent that in writing, that Lushin, you and your team were, what was his word? Excellent.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So my last question to wrap up this interview
Yes.
is, we have all heard about the attack on Saif Ali Khan,
Yeah.
which sent shockwaves across the nation.
Yeah.
So when you heard it, what was your initial reaction?
I was shocked like anybody else. I felt very sad. I felt very sad because we all know right now how certain lots feel certain things. I mean, I'm trying to be tepid in the way I say things and tactful. I felt sad because I felt that from the hand of a perpetrator, either a murderer or a rapist, no one is safe. Not the guy on the street, not a middle class person, not a commoner, not a big star like Saif, not anybody. When a perpetrator wants to attack for whatever reasons, he will attack. Which is why in one of my after conversations after my solo, Aruna story, I have also asked, while I've been sitting there talking to the audience, that how many of you have wondered what goes into the minds of these perpetrators, number one, and what one should do with perpetrators. I mean, I'm sounding very cruel when I say this, because they put somebody through a lot of agony and pain, and often the sentence is only that the person will be hung, or person will be, if he's put in jail, it's a cushy jail, right? They can get their food, they sleep, they don't get outside the four walls. But besides that, what is the heavy duty cruelty on them? I mean, let's ask ourselves that, right? You do something horrific to somebody. Saif is just like any other human being, right? He may be a big star, but those knife jabs were felt by him like you or me, like anybody. We all have the human body like anybody else. So you feel awful for a big star or for that man on the street or anybody. And you want to bring that person to book. But I have serious reservations and opinions about how people are brought to book. I mean, you know that Aruna's rapist got away after 7 years. While she vegetated for 42 years, that man is walking on the streets a free man after 7 years. So what we do with these guys, it's one thing to be horrified. Two is, what do we do with these people? And how much counseling? Kiran Bedi did a lot of that in jails, through yoga, through whatever steps she took. But what are we doing to rectify this? When I did Aruna's story with Rail Padamsi, who's a phenomenal, fantastic producer, she got the very fine gentleman, Vivek Vansalkar, the commissioner of police, came twice to see my solos, God bless him. And they've started 103, this number, the police, that you can, something happens to me or you in Bombay, you dial that 103, in the blink of an eye you will have a police, there for you. So what all are we doing on three fronts? One, to look into the head of these guys these perpetrators. It can't just be, oh, they want to exert their power. It can't just be, yes, it's a lot to do with how men are brought up, okay, like how they are brought up. It can't just, you know, have to do with, okay, he had a lot of drugs, he had this. Well, then how are you dealing with all that? Okay, how are you dealing with all this? What are the measures you're taking as looking into their heads and trying to fix that? 2, what measures are you taking as preventives? 3, what measures are you taking as aftermaths to deal with these horrific monsters? Because a jail, they often have their biris, they often have their, you know, their books, their TVs, they often bribe people to get this and that. Okay, they're not living their life to the fullest, but they're living. And just hanging that guy, he suffers for a few seconds and he's gone. What about that person who suffered for so long? So what measures are we taking, really? So I think these kind of things, this is what my piece is, and I can say it with full confidence, this is what it triggers. These kind of questions, these kind of dialogues. It does. So when I started on this path, there were people who'd say, a couple of them, not too many, including somebody who's very close to me, that who's going to get affected with all this? You know, where's it going to go? And boy, haven't I seen where it's gone, you know, over the last 15 years. My next piece that I'm doing with Arvindji is actually on Amrita Shergill. And it's not on a heavy duty kind of, you know, solo piece on an issue. It's about on the life of and the psychology of this woman. And I'm really looking forward to it. So it's not like one doesn't dabble in other different things, but I know that I'll stay this course and I'll keep on touching on subjects which are very provocative, which are very strong. Somebody told me, several people have told me, you know, you should do some very glamorous roles also, you know. They felt that I could or would or should. And I said, there are many people doing it. Let's leave it to them. I'm more interested in doing something which has a lot of gravitas of a different kind. That's what excites me, actually.
Thank you for joining us here. We wish you all the best for all your upcoming projects.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ankita.